The Cross family moved into the old Victorian house on the edge of Willow Creek in late October, just before the first snow. It was supposed to be a new beginning, a quiet town, a fresh start, but from the first night the house felt wrong. Helen Cross noticed it first, the strange cold that never left Emily's room. No matter how high they turned the heater, the air stayed icy. Then came the whispers. At first she thought it was the wind, sighing through the cracks of the old wooden walls, but her daughter, 16-year-old Emily, knew it wasn't the wind. "Mom?" she whispered one night, standing at the edge of her mother's bed. Helen blinked awake. "Emily, what's wrong?" "There's someone in my room," the girl said. "They're talking, from the walls." Helen sighed, half asleep. "It's probably just the pipes again, sweetheart. This house is old. Go back to bed." But Emily didn't. That night she sat up in her bed, listening. The whisper came again, low, almost a growl, a voice that wasn't her own. Open quote, "Let me in," close quote. Her eyes shot open. The room was cold enough for her breath to show. The small wooden crucifix above her bed was now lying on the floor, face down. Her heart pounded. She wanted to scream, but the voice spoke again. Open quote, "You heard me." Close quote. Emily pulled her blanket to her chin and closed her eyes. She didn't sleep at all that night. In the morning, Helen found deep scratches on Emily's bedroom door, long, jagged lines as though made by fingernails. "Emily," she gasped, "what happened here?" "I don't know," Emily whispered. "It came from inside." Helen's husband, Richard, laughed it off. Probably the wood settling. Old houses do that. But that night, even he heard something. A faint tapping in the walls. Then a whisper. His wife's name. Open quote, "Helen," close quote. He froze. The voice came from behind him, but when he turned, the room was empty. A few days later, Helen called Father Michael Kane, the local priest. He arrived in the afternoon, an older man with tired eyes and a voice that carried quiet authority. "I've blessed many homes in this town," he said. "Sometimes old walls hold dark memories. Let's see if a prayer can bring peace." He began sprinkling holy water around the rooms, chanting in Latin. The moment he stepped into Emily's room, the candle beside him flickered violently, then went out. Father Kane frowned. "Did you feel that?" Helen nodded. The air was freezing. The priest made the sign of the cross. "There's something here," he murmured. "Something like what?" Helen asked, her voice trembling. Father Kane didn't answer. He placed the crucifix back on the wall and said a soft prayer. As he turned to leave, Emily's mirror cracked without a sound. A thin fracture ran from corner to corner like a scar across its surface. That night, the Cross family went to bed early. At 3:07 a.m., Emily's screams filled the house. Helen and Richard ran to her room and froze in horror. Emily was hovering several inches above her bed, her body rigid, her eyes rolled completely white. Her mouth opened, but what came out wasn't her voice. Open quote, "She is mine." Close quote. Helen screamed. Richard rushed forward, grabbing his daughter's shoulders, and was thrown backward as if by an invisible force. He hit the wall hard, gasping for breath. Emily's body twisted in midair, head jerking unnaturally to the side. She began to speak again, in a deep, guttural language no one could understand. Father Kane, still awake in the rectory miles away, suddenly felt his Bible fall from his desk. By morning, Emily was quiet, calm even. She sat on the floor, humming to herself, staring at the wall. Helen knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, talk to me. What happened?" Emily turned her head slowly, her voice distant. "I wasn't alone," she said softly. "He came from the dark." "Who came, darling?" Helen whispered. Emily smiled faintly. "My friend." "Your friend?" "Yes." She turned back to the wall. "He lives inside it." That night Father Kane returned. He brought holy water, a Bible, and a small silver cross. The girl sat on her bed, her eyes glassy. "Emily," he said gently, "do you know who I am?" She nodded. "You're the one who makes the shadows angry." The priest froze. "What do you mean?" Emily looked up, and for a brief moment her eyes flashed black. "He says you don't belong here." Father Kane's breath caught. "Who says that?" Emily tilted her head. Her smile widened, too wide. Open quote, "The one you'll meet soon." Close quote. That was the night Father Kane realized this wasn't just a haunting. It was an invitation. And something had already accepted its burden. Father Michael Kane hadn't slept in days. The whispers from the cross house wouldn't leave his mind. The strange cold, the way Emily's eyes had turned black, the sound of her voice changing into something inhuman. He sat in his dim church office, surrounded by books older than his own faith, searching for an answer. Candlelight danced on the pages of the Ritual Romanum, the ancient manual for exorcisms. There it was, the warning, he who doubts invites the devil in. Kane closed the book. His hands trembled slightly. He had seen strange things in his years as a priest, but never like this. The next morning he called the diocese. "Bishop, this girl, she's not just sick. Something is inside her." The bishop's voice crackled through the phone. "Possession? Are you certain, Father?" "I've seen it," Kane said. "The levitation, the unnatural voice. She knows things she shouldn't know." A pause. Then the bishop said quietly, "Be careful, my son. Evil feeds on fear. It will test you, and it will know your sins." That night, Kane returned to the cross house. Helen opened the door, her eyes hollow from sleeplessness. "She doesn't eat anymore," she whispered. "She talks to herself. Sometimes she laughs for hours." Kane nodded grimly. "Where is she?" "In her room." He climbed the stairs slowly. The air grew colder with each step. When he entered Emily's room, he froze. The curtains were drawn. Every surface was covered in drawings, hundreds of them done in charcoal. Circles, strange symbols, crosses turned upside down, and in the center of it all, Emily sat on her bed, humming. "Hello, Father," she said without looking up. "I've been waiting." Kane approached carefully. "Emily, do you know who I am?" She smiled faintly. "You came back. Good. He said you would." "Who said that?" Kane asked. Emily looked up, her eyes completely black. "My friend." Kane raised his crucifix. "In the name of Christ." But before he could finish, the crucifix flew out of his hand and struck the wall. Emily's laughter filled the room, deep, echoing, layered with many voices. "Your faith is weak," the demon hissed. "You couldn't even save your own mother." Kane froze. His breath caught. "What did you say?" "Your mother," it whispered. "She called for you while the fire burned. You didn't come." Tears welled in Kane's eyes. No one knew that secret. No one. "Who told you that?" he demanded. Emily tilted her head. "She did." Then in his mother's voice, "Michael, why did you let me die?" Kane stumbled backward, his hands shaking. "You are not her," he shouted. The voice laughed again, cruel and mocking. "You wear the collar but carry no faith." Kane backed toward the door. "In the name of Christ, leave this child!" Emily's face twisted, veins bulging. "He cannot hear you." Suddenly the room filled with a stench of rot. The candles blew out, one by one. Then silence. Kane picked up his crucifix from the floor and whispered, "God help us." The next day, Kane met with another priest, Father Thomas, a young cleric sent from the diocese to assist. Thomas had never performed an exorcism before. He was nervous, clutching his rosary like a lifeline. "Is it true?" he asked. "The girl, she's possessed?" Kane nodded. "We begin tonight." That evening, as the clock struck midnight, they entered Emily's room. Helen knelt by the doorway, praying under her breath. The priest set up candles, holy water, and the ancient text of the Ritual Romanum. Father Kane began. His voice was firm but strained. "In the name of Jesus Christ, I command you, unclean spirit, to reveal yourself." Emily's eyes snapped open. "You already know me," she said in a low, trembling voice. Her body began to convulse. She screamed in multiple voices at once, male, female, child, animal, a chaotic chorus of agony and hatred. Father Thomas flinched. "My God." Kane gripped his shoulder. "Don't look at her. Keep reading." They continued the chant. The air turned cold as ice. The walls began to shake. A picture frame shattered. Furniture slid across the floor. Emily's body lifted from the bed again, twisting violently in midair. "Stop!" Helen cried. But the demon laughed through Emily's lips. "Mother, you can't help her. She's already dead." "Keep going," Kane shouted. "It's trying to break you." Father Thomas raised the cross. "I command you, in the name of Christ, leave this body." Emily's skin began to burn where the holy water touched her. She screamed, a sound so inhuman it shook the entire house. The lights flickered, the window shattered, then silence. Emily fell onto the bed, motionless. Kane approached carefully. "Emily?" She turned her head slowly and smiled. "Father," she whispered in her normal voice. "It's over," Kane said softly, relieved. But her lips curled into a grin. "No," she whispered, "it's only beginning." Then a hand shot out, grabbing Kane's throat with impossible strength. He choked, gasping for air. Father Thomas rushed forward, trying to pull her off. "Emily, stop!" Her head snapped toward him. "You'll be next," the demon hissed. A loud crack echoed through the room. The cross on the wall fell, upside down. Kane, his throat bruised, managed to gasp out a single word. Christ! Immediately, Emily shrieked, clutching her head as if in pain. Smoke rose from her skin where the cross had landed. The priests seized the moment. They resumed the prayers, shouting over the screams. Open quote. The power of Christ compels you. The power of Christ compels you. Close quote. For a brief instant, Emily's voice softened. Please, she whispered, help me. But then just as quickly, the dark voice returned. She's gone. Her eyes turned black again. Hours later, the exorcism ended without success. Emily lay still, exhausted. The priest stood in silence. Father Thomas whispered, Did we fail? Kane looked at the girl's pale face. Not yet, but something ancient is inside her. He turned to Helen. Keep her under watch. Do not leave her alone, not even for a minute. Helen nodded through her tears. Will she survive? Kane hesitated. Then quietly, I don't know. That night, Father Kane returned to the church, collapsed before the altar and prayed. Lord, he whispered, if I must face the devil himself, then give me strength or take my soul instead. The candles flickered once. Then a voice echoed through the empty church. Soft fermentation. 3 days had passed since the failed exorcism, and the cross house had turned into something unholy. The mirrors bled condensation even when the air was dry. Shadows moved without light. Doors creaked open by themselves, and Emily was dying. Her body was weak, her skin pale, her lips cracked. Symbols, deep and red, appeared across her arms and neck each night. Her voice changed daily, sometimes her own, sometimes that of a child, sometimes the demon's cruel whisper. Helen barely left her bedside. Please, she begged Father Kane, don't let her die. The priest looked at the girl's trembling body and whispered, I won't, even if it costs me everything. He had read the ancient scriptures again and again. The same line kept haunting him. Open quote, when the spirit refuses to leave, a willing soul may take its place. Close quote. It was the only way. A forbidden ritual. One that would demand complete surrender. That evening the bishop called. Father Kane, he said sternly, you must stop. The demon is too strong. Withdraw before it destroys you. But Kane's voice was calm. If I leave, she'll die. Or worse. He hung up the phone and stared at the cracked crucifix on his desk. His decision was already made. At midnight, Father Kane returned to the cross home one last time. Father Thomas joined him, trembling but determined. If we fail tonight, we both die, Thomas said quietly. Kane looked him in the eye. Then we die fighting. The wind howled outside as thunder rolled over Willow Creek. Inside Emily's room, every candle flickered violently, casting long, distorted shadows across the walls. Emily lay strapped to her bed, whispering something too soft to hear. Kane leaned closer. Emily? Her eyes opened, both completely white. You came back, the voice inside her purred. Kane raised the crucifix. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The bed shook violently. Emily's body lifted off the mattress, twisting like a rag doll. Leave her, Kane roared. The demon's laughter echoed, shaking the walls. You think your prayers scare me, priest? You are nothing. A broken man pretending to have faith. Father Thomas joined in the chant. The power of Christ compels you. Emily screamed, her voice splitting into multiple tones at once. Her eyes turned black, her teeth bared. The power of Christ compels you, they repeated louder each time. The candles went out, all at once. The only light came from lightning outside, flashing through the window. Then came a whisper. Open quote. She's mine. Close quote. And with a sudden jolt, the room went completely silent. Emily's breathing stopped. Helen screamed, rushing forward, but Kane blocked her. Stay back! He pressed 2 fingers to Emily's neck. No pulse. Father Thomas froze. She's gone. But then, slowly, Emily's lips moved. Her eyes opened again, and this time it was not the demon speaking. Father, she whispered weakly. Help me. Kane leaned closer. Emily, listen to me. You have to fight it. Tears rolled down her cheeks. It hurts. Then suddenly her expression changed. Her eyes turned black again. She's not here anymore, the demon growled. Only me. Kane raised the cross higher. If you won't release her, then take me. The entire house shook. The crucifix in his hand burned red hot. Michael Kane, the demon hissed. You offer your soul. Kane shouted over the wind. If it frees her, yes! The lights exploded. Glass shattered. Helen screamed as her daughter's body convulsed violently. Father Thomas cried out, Don't do it. But Kane kept praying. Take me, not her. In the name of Christ, I command you, take me. The black mist began to rise from Emily's body, twisting, swirling, forming a shape, tall-horned, shifting between smoke and flesh. It lunged toward Kane. He stood unmoving, arms open, whispering his final words. Open quote, "Into my hands, Lord, I commend my spirit." Close quote. The mist struck him. For a moment the air turned ice cold. Then silence. Emily collapsed onto the bed, motionless. The storm outside stopped. The candles flickered back to life. Helen rushed forward. "Emily! Oh, God, Emily!" The girl opened her eyes slowly. They were blue again, cumin. "Mom," she whispered weakly. Helen sobbed, clutching her daughter. "It's over. It's finally over." But behind them, Father Kane stood completely still, his face pale, his eyes dark. Father Thomas approached cautiously. "Father?" Kane turned his head slowly and smiled, but it wasn't his smile. His eyes were completely black. Thomas stepped back, horrified. "Dear God." The voice that came out of Kane's mouth was deep and cold. "She's free now, I'm not." The cross on the wall turned upside down. The flames of the candles burned black. Father Thomas shouted, "In the name of Christ!" But Kane raised a hand. "No need," he said softly. "He's already here." Then, with impossible force, every candle extinguished at once, plunging the room into darkness. When the light returned, Father Kane was gone. The window stood open, the curtains billowing in the cold wind. Father Thomas ran to it, looking out into the rain-soaked night, but there was nothing. Only the dark woods beyond Willow Creek. Helen held her daughter tightly, whispering, "It's over, it's over." But deep in the distance, thunder rumbled once more, soft, echoing, almost like laughter. A week later, Father Thomas visited the church. He found Father Kane's diary left on the altar. The final entry was written in trembling ink. Open quote, "The devil hides not in shadows, but in hearts that doubt. I gave mine away to save another. Pray for me, for I walk where angels fear to tread." Close quote. Father Thomas closed the book, tears in his eyes. He whispered, "Rest in peace, old friend." But as he turned to leave, he heard a faint voice, calm, familiar, and chilling. Years passed. The house at Willow Creek stood silent, its windows boarded, its walls covered in ivy and rot. Locals called it the Devil's House. No one dared go near it after what had happened. Emily Cross, now 22, lived far away under a different name. Her family had moved to another state, trying to forget everything. But memories never really die. Sometimes at night, Emily would wake suddenly, her heart pounding, her room cold as ice. She would swear she heard whispering again, a faint, familiar voice. Open quote, "Emily, remember me?" Close quote, she'd turn on the light. Nothing. Only silence. Her mother told her it was trauma, echoes of the past. But deep down, Emily knew better. Something had never left. One winter evening, as snow drifted outside her apartment, a knock came at the door. No visitors were expected. When she opened it, there was no one there, only a small wooden box on the ground. No name, no note, just her name carved on the lid. She hesitated, then opened it. Inside lay a single item, Father Kane's old crucifix, cracked, blackened, and burned around the edges. Emily gasped. Her hands shook. She hadn't seen that cross since the night he vanished. Tears welled in her eyes. "He saved me," she whispered. "He's still fighting." But as she turned the crucifix over, she noticed something scratched into the back, words that hadn't been there before. Open quote, "You can't save what's already marked." Close quote. The lights flickered. The room temperature dropped. Her breath came out in white mist. And then, a voice. Low, gentle, terrifyingly familiar. Open quote, "Hello again, Emily." Close quote. She spun around, but there was no one. The cross fell from her hands, hitting the floor with a dull thud. It began to move, sliding slowly toward her as though dragged by something unseen. Emily backed away, whispering, "No, please no." The shadows around her began to ripple, bending unnaturally. The whisper came again, closer this time, directly beside her ear. Open quote, "Did you really think he could save you?" Close quote. Her scream echoed through the night, carried out into the snowstorm until it faded completely. By morning, the apartment was empty. Only the blackened crucifix remained, still warm to the touch. The end.